There's something extra special, I think, about starting Monday with a leadership topic. My hope is, beyond everyone's cup of coffee to start the day, this really kicks off the energy of framing the week, the year, and into 2024 with some really good tips, some tangible action items, and just really some good thought perspectives from some of the greatest leaders in our industry. So let's go ahead and kind of jump in. For those who don't know me, I'm Brena Nath. I'm the director of HW Plus and events here at HousingWire. We're hosting these Playbook series as mini events leading up to HousingWire Annual in Austin, Texas, not August, in Austin, Texas, which is October 10th through 12th. This is our second one in the series. Our first one really dove into data and how you need to look at the data in order to deploy the information in your business and make sure you're sharing with your agents, with your loan officers, with the people in your sphere, what exactly is going into the market. I like to quote Mike Simonson, the president of Altos, when he says, we don't want to go off vibes this year. This is not a feelings-based time. This is something where you actually want tangible tips. And that's kind of the heart behind this conversation too. The theme in this one is leadership mindset. We have 4 amazing speakers here. I have a great list of questions for them, but this is an open Q&A. So if you see the Q&A function below, the chat feature, drop in your questions there. We'd love to get them to help give you any direct feedback that you need to know in order to navigate this year and beyond. Before I jump in, I wanted to give a few quick housekeeping items. So as I just mentioned, we have the Q&A feature below. Feel free to drop in your questions. And the other big question that we often get is, are you going to get a copy of this recording? The great answer is yes. We'll have a copy sent to your email, or you can go to housingwire.com, navigate to the webinar section. We'll have a copy there as well. Share with your team, take notes, whatever you need to do in order to make sure you don't miss any of the great insights here and you're able to capture your attention, know all the knowledge that you need. So without further ado, I want to introduce our 4 amazing panelists that are not only here right now for our virtual event, but like I said, this is a preview of HousingWire Annual. We're calling these playbooks because these 4 are giving you an inside look at the playbooks that they're using, that they're building and crafting in order to navigate the future. So first, I have Tyler Hodgson. He's the Executive Vice President of Growth at U Mortgage. Thanks for joining us, Tyler.
Glad to be here.
And then next, I have Sarah Gonzales. She's the president and COO at Panorama Mortgage Group. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you, Brena. Glad to be here.
And Tyler and Sarah are extra special because they're in the Texas area. And as I said, HousingWire Annual is in Austin, Texas. So shout out to our Texas folks giving a preview of the state that we're going to be in. And so the next person that we have is Jay Promisco. He's the Chief Production Officer at Sierra Pacific Mortgage. Thanks for joining us, Jay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And then to round us out, we have Ginger Wilcox. She's the president at Better Homes and Garden Real Estate. Thanks for joining us, Ginger.
Thank you so much, Brena. Happy to be here.
And of course, as leaders, I'm sure Jay and Ginger, you're also in Texas all the time beyond just coming to HousingWire Annual. So you guys are almost, I'm sure, Texas residents, basically.
I'll actually be there this week. So absolutely.
Well, jumping right in, like I said, there's a Q&A, but really how I wanted to frame this discussion is 2023 is a unique market. We've been calling it a down market, but in a lot of the planning calls that I've had with speakers, a lot of that is mindset. You know, how are you navigating this year? There's still business out there to be had. There's still partnerships that we need to make between real estate and mortgage. And Ginger, you bring that great perspective in too. So my hope is how I frame these questions is really just starting out with, okay, as leaders, how are you for looking at the market into let's dive in deeper. Where does technology stand right now in this year, knowing that business is tougher? Do you deploy all the technology? How do you not follow the shiny things? To then also, one of my favorite questions that I'll kind of ask towards the end is what's keeping you guys up at night? That changes from person to person. I think is a great insight into what's on your guys' minds a lot of time right now. So let's kick off with that first question I mentioned, which is, let's start looking at the current housing market. So what's happening now? We're almost at the end of August. We're over halfway through the year. How are you as a leader thinking about this current market in 2023, Jay? And I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, a show of hands, who's having fun right now? Right. And so this has been, and somebody made mention, it's been 21 years since we've seen something like this, right? So you were trying to put it in perspective, like, is this an 07, 08? Is it 94? Or is it 16? What is it? And then somebody made something really funny, like 20 years ago, and I immediately thought of the 80s. And I was like, no, actually, that was like, 2001. So I mean, a fast time goes by. But the market is exceptionally difficult. And we've been in this range, I mean, literally for like 19 months, right? So, and the old saying, the beatings will continue until morale improves. That's kind of how it feels like to be a loan originator today. every day it just feels like it continues to deteriorate. So now I will tell you that I think that the market is, it's a geographic exercise on who's having success or not. When you have 7-8% interest rates, lower sales price houses are still going to perform. When you get into the higher property values, you're definitely going to have a bigger issue. And we have this perfect storm where we don't have as much inventory as we need, because people are locked into their 2.5%. They're not going to sell their home and go into 8%. So you have an inventory shortage. There's been a foreclosure moratorium. So usually that's a good part of the inventory as well. And then we have builders that are over capacity and not able to build the way they need to because of material costs. So, and then interest rates that are high. So it's this perfect storm, but good times never last forever, as we know, and bad times never last forever, as we know as well. And so there's two things you can do in this market. You can quit, right, and just give up and go sell tires or something. Unfortunately, me, like everybody else, I don't know how to do anything else. So you have to just grind through it. If I was an originator, I would tell you now is the time to perfect your craft, because there's ways to get better today, to be prepared for when this market turns, and it will. And it's not going to take much now. So, 6 months ago, I go, hey, if the interest rates go down to 5%, that'd be good. Now we're sitting there going, man, if interest rates go down to 6.5%, that'd be good. So the time will come. It's whether or not you're putting in the time, effort, energy now to get ready for when that's going to happen. So, and there's all kinds of ways to perfect your craft, getting rid of dumb things you're doing and work on things that are going to provide value in the future, which is building relationships in the community. So.
Go ahead, Ginger.
Thanks, Sarah. I agree 100% with Jay. We're really focused on helping our brokers think about, obviously, things like cost management, recruiting, retention, and on the agent side, I think now more than ever, the focus on marketing is really key. We're looking at the tools and how to support our agents with ways to be able to reach out to their sphere and really be thinking about what the business is going to look like as it turns, because there's this tendency in a down market to want to, obviously restrict on budget because times are tough for a lot of agents and a lot of loan officers. But now is the time to invest, because when that business comes back, you want to be at the forefront for those customers that are in your network for when they're ready to actually make that move.
And I agree with that too, Ginger, and Jay, with you as well. I think what's fun about right now, and Jay, you asked who's having fun. I don't know that I'm having a lot of fun, but what is good about right now is that you have creative time to really think about how you've been doing business. How do you want to do it going forward? Really kind of tearing down the barriers of how we've always done things and finding ways to evolutionize your business, modernize it, whatever word you want to use. But really right now is a great time to be creative. Really think outside the box when it comes to, the cost of your operations, the cost of acquisition, things of that nature, being able to kind of think outside the box. So agree with Jay and Ginger. We're doing some of the same things, but I think the one thing I'm having fun with right now is the fact that I'm getting to be creative, and I actually have the hours and some of the capacity to do that within our group.
Yeah, so I think in general, all of us, we're looking at this market as an opportunity of what's in the future. So we know the current state of today, and it is what it is, but we're not just focused on today. We're using the time and things that we have in front of us now to see what kind of opportunity we can create in the future.
I want to dive a little bit more into what does today look like? So I know Sarah and I were chatting, we're going in the planning call for what we should discuss at HousingWire Annual in person. And there's been a lot of change this year. Like Sarah's panel, specifically HousingWire Annual, talks on how to, like from the operation standpoint, how do you deliver change management throughout a company? And I think that's a great speaking point for this group, from an actionable area and standpoint. This year, and even the past 3 years, we went to a lot of, hybrid, and some people are coming back. Are we fully remote? How do you ensure that throughout the company, the way you're delivering information, whether that's even based where people physically are, to you're deploying something new and you need everyone to be on the same page? So how, from an actual standpoint, Sarah, I'll start with you, knowing that this is a big topic of your panel. How are you structuring communication and delivering through information throughout your company right now?
So again, talking about all that creativeness, right? Then there's lots of communication going out. So I would say first and foremost, I agree with Jay, COVID's over, right? So now we have to really kind of think about the cost of bringing people back into the office, because let's all agree, right? Mortgage lending is a collaborative work environment, right? It takes a lot of people all working together to get things done from end to end. And so, we have given some thought. My headquarters are based out of Las Vegas. We have a huge Vegas, a huge group of people that go into that Vegas office, and we did, call some people back in. But then I think as we got into the year, there was a little bit more flexibility around, we thought it was really easy to bring people back in. And, I think people have adjusted to living a certain way now. And so there's kind of this fine balance of keeping that collaborative environment and still trying to find ways to work more on a hybrid schedule versus kind of the black and white of at home or in the office. And I think really when it comes down to all the creative work that we're doing, change management is huge. And Jay knows this because him and I have worked together, and I've had a big role in change management in previous roles. But when you're looking at, some of the things that all of us had to do with regards to downsizing, who's running your change management now? Well, it's probably your highest levels of leadership, where in before you maybe had layers underneath you that were kind of managing that change. And so, I find myself having to put, reminders on my calendar and making sure that I'm globally communicating with my entire company about things that are coming down the pipeline. A lot of that is just about keeping people in the know. We also do that from a capital markets perspective to our LOs, letting them know what's going on in the market, what to kind of anticipate. We do that a lot from a project basis as well. And again, it's a lot of cascading because not every message is always relevant to every person. So I think you have to be really careful about over communicating as well. And people get nauseum every time they see, your little banner or whatever you have, or maybe your name when it comes across. So, I think it's a very big balancing act of how do you keep people collaborative, right? In an environment where people may still be remote and or hybrid. Again, I know others that have brought people back into the office. We have tried that. There's a little more flexibility there around a hybrid, but I also think it's about change management because again, personally, we're getting really creative on some of the things that we're doing, which I'll talk about later in the program. But a lot of those things are moving parts and they have to be communicated accordingly through different mediums, whether it's a Teams meeting, email, memos that go out. We have strategy sessions on a pretty regular basis with a couple handfuls of people. So it's all about that.
Yeah, maybe I'll just say, Sarah's got it exactly right. Change management in this market, especially with remote employees, like no employee has ever said, hey, you communicate too much, right? So, and it's funny, executives have this view that we communicate too much, and the production people say you guys don't communicate enough. And so you can't communicate too much, right? So brutal transparency with everything you do. We're making this change. Here's the reasons why the agencies are doing this. We need to do it now, and broadcast it in kind of rule of three. Make sure you send it out 3 times to make sure everybody gets the message. Hybrid, and it's been great because people get a lot of more time with their families and that type of thing, which is good and bad depending on your family. But the chances of them missing a memo is quite high, right? And then remembering what that memo was about. So over communication right now is king. So.
I agree. I'm actually I think if this is my 8th week as president of Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. So very new in my current function, but communication is absolutely one of my top priorities. And I think when you look at this type of market, when there's a lot of angst and stress that our staff members have, that our customers have, that makes things much more challenging. And so the more that you can communicate with people, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit backstage, that it's really important to think about different approaches. We have a private network that we communicate with our brokers and agents with, but I also find social media is really powerful to be able to reach people in different ways. And so really a kind of a multi-pronged approach to make sure that we're being able to reach people where they're at is really key in this kind of market.
Tyler, you had a great idea. I'll just phrase it. He's like, yeah, I sent out all these great emails to my team. And then I posted on Instagram and they actually read that one. They don't actually read my email. So it's like, this new version of ourselves after COVID, I mean, you need to change the way you communicate as well.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's tough for old guys who've been doing this a long time. It's just really hard to change. So,
But I would say, Jay, and I don't want to spend too much time. I don't want us to go down a rabbit hole here, but I will say some of the key things we've been taught early on in our careers has been vulnerability is a no-no, right? Vulnerability, letting people, having that ability to be transparent with your teams and transparent with your company. Yeah, there's all things that, just can't be said, but, at least from my perspective, vulnerability, no, you don't do that. You be the big, powerful woman that, has it all figured out. And a lot of times we don't all have it figured out. And so being able to be vulnerable with your teams and giving them some transparency, at the end of the day, they're going to respect that a lot more and understand why we're making the decisions that we're making, versus kind of this power play of, well, everybody will just figure it out. And I don't have to look weak in the, again, that definition of vulnerability equaling weak. That's not the case anymore these days. I think we've evolved from that personally.
you're here.
You're letting them into, I always think back last year, HousingWire Annual, Renee Rodriguez spoke during the Vanguard Forum. And one thing he mentioned was the risk is if you also don't have that vulnerable moment and help fill in what that messaging is, your team will often craft a message and a narrative that is scary or like the worst oftentimes. So if you're not going to communicate to them, it's not just that they're not getting communicated to. What's often going to happen is they'll craft a worse message and kind of downward spiral from there, which leads well into, okay, so we kind of started this off. And the reason why I like, coming together for stuff like that is it gives us hope on how we're navigating forward, especially given 2023. So in a down market, you're like 2023, how do you keep your teams driving towards the same mission? One thing we all just chatted through was communication. So maybe it's that and a level deeper. Tyler, if you want to kind of touch on how do you keep, you work closely with your team. I see it a lot on LinkedIn and social and stuff like that. So how do you keep everyone moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the communication piece we just hit on is really big. Obviously trying to keep you have different team members in different work formats. You mentioned remote, in office, or a hybrid. So keeping everybody engaged can be difficult because you may just have an in-office event, or if I ordered pizza for the office, like not everyone's going to get to participate in that. So how do I keep other people engaged as well? And so, keeping everyone moving forward on that same mission, you do have to keep everybody engaged, find those creative ways to have everyone feel like they're a part of the team and a part of that same mission. And you've got to be really clear, as you kind of mentioned, Sarah mentioned, delivering and communicating that why behind why you're doing certain things. So if you're changing a process, or if you're, the company's going a different direction, or you have a new strategy, or you're offering new training or new products, you've got to be able to communicate that why and tie it back to what your mission is and what your goals are, but also relate it to the team member, because it's easy as like an executive to say, we've got this mission, we've got this strategy, we want to do this. But at the end of the day, someone is always going to ask, what does it mean to me? Like, why should I care as an individual team member, whether that's a loan originator or a real estate agent or a support staff member? you've got to be able to tie it back to them and what does our high level mission and goal mean to that individual team member. And if you can marry those two together, then you've got a lot more alignment in the organization and it keeps everybody moving forward.
My next question, I might kind of just jump into it because it kind of feeds all into the same one. I think what's unique about you four here is you all have different sizes too, right? So, Ginger, you're on this call as president of Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, and that has its own level of trying to get the whole company driving towards the same mission. So to Tyler's point, I think that's one great example. And then there's also, how do you do it on the real estate side of things? So taking your perspective, what strategies would you also add to kind of what Tyler just touched on, and any advice that you give? I know you've had several executive roles on other sides of the industry as well.
Yeah, I would say that, and Tyler touched on this, that in any market, the challenge that companies have is alignment, and particularly when your resources are down and you're having to do more with less, it becomes really challenging to be able to make sure that people are kind of all operating towards the same thing. So I think that oftentimes companies are set up for a challenge because people have different goals, and that means competing priorities become kind of the norm. In my career, I've actually used a method called the OKR method, which was pioneered by Intel, and I think kind of became pretty well known by Google. It's something that we use at Better Homes and Gardens as well. And the thing that method does, I think, really well is it helps define what you're trying to achieve, but then puts the measurements behind it of how you're going to actually get there. And then you cascade that down to each of the team members so that everybody understands and is kind of, it naturally forces that alignment that's needed to be able to maintain focus when you don't have a lot of resources. I actually recently had a really high compliment paid to me by a UX designer that worked for a company that I was involved in 2015. So it's been nearly 8 years ago. And he told a colleague of mine that one of the things that he really felt, and he was a very junior team member at that time, is that even though he was new, I think it might've been his first job out of college, he felt like he really understood how his role impacted our broader goals. And I think that that's really key for every staff member to understand how they align back to the broader mission and goals that people set out.
We do something similar here too, Ginger. When you have strategies, you're going to have objectives to meet those strategies. And when we're talking about strategic planning, right, we're talking about probably your P&L for the most part. What pinpoints do you need to be at by the end of the year? And then you got to be really clear on how you're going to get there and how to quantify what means getting there. And a lot of that comes down to those OKRs. Some people use KPIs. It doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, you got to quantify what it means, what success means, because we tend to stray or make excuses as to why maybe it went a different direction than the other. And I think if things get off course, you got to be really agile to be able to move quickly to find a way to either reset or find other ways to achieve that particular strategy. I would also say too, one of the things that I haven't really been great at in the past, but I'm working on it right now. So self-proposed flaw is we got to get better at talking about all the things that we're doing well. So when we do hit an achievement, we're really good at barking at people when they're not meeting achievements, but we got to do better about, creating those case studies, creating success stories to be able to say, hey, look, we worked as a team, guys. No lone person was out there trying to, meet revenue targets. It took a huge team to be able to do that. And so I think marking those accomplishments and letting people be aware of what's happening and why it's happening and why maybe you weren't able to achieve it before, but you can now, really important things as a leader.
I agree. And I think that's a good way to remind people also of what the priorities and focus are by celebrating those achievements, because it can be easy to be distracted. There's so much that has to be done at a given point in time. And so that constant sort of reminder of the key focuses for the organization and how people lean into that is really important. So I guess going back to communication is key.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is true when it comes to communication is I think we keep talking about how we're past COVID, but I think one side effect about being past COVID is there's more things than ever competing for our attention. Like you talk about, you have to send the same message 3 times. There's now, because we're so plugged in online, there's a lot of things between email to LinkedIn to your own personal messaging to text. You're trying to win over their attention in that time. Jay, how I would kind of switch this conversation over to you and love your extra input in is when we were even planning your talk for the Vanguard Forum at HousingWire Annual, you and I talked about the importance of making sure you stay involved, which kind of fits this theme of like, as a leader, you need to know what everyone in your company is doing, and also making hard decisions. And I want to tie into that first point of knowing what everyone is doing. I framed this question with a positive, but maybe it's important to take it the other direction, which is I use the word inspire in this, how to inspire change there at a whole company. But then again, you and I specifically talked about just the importance of everyone in the company, you need to know what your business is doing. So I'll let you kind of take that either direction you think is important, with the original question being, how do you inspire change throughout the whole company?
Yeah, I had Sarah and I share a couple mentors, and I think the one thing I learned from this guy, Brian Hale, is if you're a leader of a company and you don't know absolutely everything that's going on in your company, who are you to go tell somebody to go change what they're doing, right? So you see this all the time. This industry is famous for it. You have leaders that give really great speeches and they have really good PowerPoints, and they've never taken a 1003 in their life. And they're there on camera trying to explain to an originator, here's what you need to be doing differently. And that's blatantly your first responsibility as a leader, is to understand what your people do for a living first. So that when you're trying to make a change, and now the changes we're making now are uncomfortable. Like all the changes we're making aren't like, hey man, I really want to do this because it's fun to do. No, we're doing this to lower our cost to manufacture. I'm trying to get a better price on the street. I'm trying to figure out a new market to go in, to go find loans that I can do. These are really hard changes we're making that the industry, frankly, has been reluctant to make over the years because we've always been flush with business. And now the industry is forced as such to make massive changes to their organization in order to survive into the next years. We have people on the phone. We have this perfect storm we've talked about. We have like a really housing market that's been disrupted. We have high interest rates. We have no inventory. We have agencies that are not behaving the way they used to in the past, right? So they are forcing us to manufacture loans perfectly now. Not like you can kind of get it halfway right, and then maybe it'll get in a pool and we won't find it later. With the use of AI and the stuff they're doing, any mistake you make on a loan now, they will find and you will repurchase the loan, right? So there's a lack of liquidity in the market. So we're selling stuff that nobody wants, right? So capital markets is such that who wants to tie on to an 8% interest rate knowing it's going to refinance in a year? Nobody, right? So the obstacles we have are massive. So to inspire the change in my company, number one, you have to explain to them with brutal transparency, like I talked before, here's all the stuff we're up against, right? And if you have a successful team, they care about each other, right? And you can say things like, if we don't do this, we may not make it to the next cycle, right? It's that important. And I would like everybody to be at this company next year, right? And so there are things that just have to be done, right? And there's some massaging to that, because you can't take somebody that's working all day long and just beat them over with a hammer and tell them to work harder. They're already working as hard as they can. So to inspire the change, it's got to be slow, methodical change, well communicated out, and explain all the reasons why. Like nobody that I know like saying, and my kids don't like it, well, you need to stop doing that. Why? Because I said so. It doesn't get you anywhere, right? You have to explain all the reasons why. Protecting your capital base, you're protecting the company. I'm making sure my loans get sold and they stay sold. I have borrowers that can make their payment on time. And one thing that has helped me at the organization that I work at now, one of our pillars, and it's like a non-negotiable, is to do the right thing always, right? And so if you entrust your people to do the right thing always, and there's been studies on this forever, and one of the best companies known for this was Southwest with Herb Keller. told all of his employees, flight attendants, everything, you take care of the customer first, because without a customer, this company ceases to exist. So there's an empowerment, allowing your employees to make changes on their own and make decisions on the fly, super important. If you micromanage people, they're going to resist change. I guess the overarching theme is you can never communicate enough. You need to, more importantly, if you're making this change as a leader, you need to believe in the change more than anybody in your organization. And there's a lot of leaders like, we're going to change this. Well, do you want to do it? Well, no, not really. Okay, well, it's your first mistake. You have to be passionate about this business. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to love coming in every day, and people will feed off of that and they will listen to you more. Our friend Renee has told me this thousands of times. Do you really believe in what you do? Do you really like, and remember what we do? We have like the coolest job in the world. I put people in the new homes and I create wealth. It's like a really unique responsibility we have. And with that passion, I want to be able to deliver service to more homeowners. Your employees, the people that you're trying to change are going to feel that. It's passion, it's communication, and then transparency.
Ginger, Sarah, anything you want to add to that inspiring?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Jay's saying. I think it's kind of been the theme of the entire call. I think the only thing I would add is not every time, but sometimes you have to get buy-in. You may have to bring in subject matter experts that are longstanding ambassadors for the change you're trying to implement. So bringing them in early on, letting them have an opinion or a say around what the change is going to be, and being able to get transparent feedback around how it will impact not only the team, but if it's going to be something that impacts something later down in the team or in the process, and then being able to communicate that early on to get that buy-in and say, okay, now I understand, right? And making them a part of that decision-making process, they will go out and fight for you and fight for the change. And that's inspiring, because now it's not just you inspiring your team. You have pockets of people that are out inspiring others and feel really good about, being a part of that conversation, being a part of the buy-in, and being able to spread kind of, the change and be a part of that, right? Which in some cases may be very small in your company, where in other cases, it could be the difference between making $1 and making $1 million. So I think giving people that opportunity to share and collaborate in those changes sometimes, again, it can't be every time, but when there are big decisions to be made, and bringing in the right people that are going to stand behind the company, not just you, the company around the change, I think it speaks volumes around company culture and the ability for other people to have a stake in the game.
I agree 100% with Sarah. I think that, so sometimes during times of stress, it can be easy to think about a top-down strategy. And when you're really trying to drive change, that can be, it can be really hard to do that. And in reality, the frontline employees that are dealing with customers, that are, doing the production, they have a different perspective. And if they're involved in trying to define what that solution looks like, it really creates opportunities for you to think outside the box. And, we talked a little bit about getting creative. Those best ideas come from a broader set of ideas that are coming together to be able to solve the problems that you have. And so the more you can do that to be able to inspire change, it does tend to permeate through the organization. And you have those change agents or ambassadors that are helping support the initiatives to be able to facilitate that change.
Yeah, we all probably can count the enumerate, like as you go down to a line level employee and you follow what they actually do and you watch them, you're like, tell me what you do. And then frankly, a bunch of times I'm like, why are you doing this? That's dumb. Like, well, my manager told me to do that. I'm like, so it's being involved, like you say, and your frontline employees who are dealing with the customer every day know what the customer wants. It's super important, like to what you're saying, Ginger, is you got to be involved in the organization, top down. So
I would just add one more thing, and I would just say, we're talking a lot about collaboration and being an ambassador and all these things. The other side of this, the flip side of this, right, is you can do all that good, get people involved. But then how do you handle the people that don't get on board with change, right? That are those people that, just for whatever reason won't buy in, right? Maybe some of it's just a conversation around maybe understanding the why a little bit broader. But there has to be a sense of accountability at our level and all leadership levels within your company, because I'll tell you what, you can empower those that want to collaborate and be a part of the decision-making process and fight for you along the way. But if you do not fight for the accountability on the other side for the people that aren't getting on the train and riding that train with you, everything you just worked for on the beginning is going to fall apart on the back end. So it's the very healthy balance of making sure that you're empowering people, but at the same time, inspecting what you expect, right? The cliche of inspecting what you expect, holding those accountability lines very high, and in the highest levels of your organization, right? I think that's really important.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Sarah, because I know Jay has some parts about that in his talk too. So I think it's making those tough decisions, and I think your key performers are also watching everyone too. So inspiring that confidence in them if they are a top player of what it took for them to be at the company. We've had a lot of great, like we talk about communication, stuff like that. I would love to turn this into some actionable strategic things that you're doing in order to prepare for the future. So these are a lot of the communications and the plans and the way you inspected 2023. Tyler, I'll throw this question to you, but what are, taking everything we just discussed, what are some of the strategic things you've done? What are some of the actionable tips you might have on now? How do you take all this and prepare for the future? And, you are obviously in charge of growth. So how do you grow in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest strategies and stuff pertaining to growth is like really dissecting, kind of like Jay mentioned, look at the line level employees, look at what are the loan originators doing today in this market. And what we realize is like a lot of originators are out on silos, like they're out there by themselves, they're doing their thing in the market, they're trying to get some more loans, they're trying to close deals, but they don't have a feeling of community or this sense of like being a part of something bigger. And the other piece there is, you notice with your high producers and your top performers, a lot of tribal knowledge. So you'll see that like, I know how to do it, but how do I disseminate that to the rest of the organization? Or this loan originator does really good at this thing, or your top operations person does this very well. They know everything, they know all the guidelines, but how do you get that out to the rest of the organization? So we've been heavily investing in, creating a coaching program that allows our top performers to coach other team members in the company. And as a way to, number one, it's creating that culture and creating that community. So people are getting face-to-face and one-on-one time and small group sessions. It helps solve some of that communication gap that we talked about earlier. And it helps pass down that tribal knowledge, because somebody who's producing a lot may know great strategies that can benefit so many other people in the company, but it's hard to pick those out when everybody's involved in their day-to-day. So, we've been leading this effort of level up sales coaching as a way to grow, because people are doing more activities, they're motivated to do more, they're receiving, great insights from other top performers and mixing it up amongst, different markets. So a great LO in Texas is learning a strategy, from another LO in Florida. And, that's the best way for us to be prepared for the next market is just through this, creating a really strong community and making sure that everybody's equipped with as much tools and information as they can get from others. So we see our like internal coaching platform as a huge opportunity for us to continue growing forward.
We got a question from the audience that I think is a great question to ask you for, that I'm kind of going to jump into as well. This person kind of said, pertaining to the mortgage world, we all have our different models. Some have servicing, some don't, and servicing is definitely helping some companies stay in the black, and companies that are in the black are barely breaking even. Growth for his company is expanding out their footprint is huge, or growth for the company expanding out their footprint is huge. It costs money to recruit and grow. So the question in all of this for you four is, how do you measure cost versus risk in positioning for the future, many companies could stay at break even or remain profitable, but at the stance of not growing and hiding, they won't be ready to grow for the future. So how do you justify a hit to this year's P&L? And I know that's something that you guys have already mentioned, is we're all looking at profits and losses right now. So how do you justify a hit to this year's to grow? There is plenty of opportunity to acquire top production talent in this market, but there is a cost to everything. So I like this question because it's really weighting the pros and cons of this market that we all have, you know, for you to grow, you're deciding that you have to put money kind of in right now, but maybe you guys all have kind of a different take there. I'll kind of open it up. I don't know if Jay, you have thoughts first, or Sarah, but kind of I'll throw the question out there.
Yeah, I was a loan officer for a long time, and I was an average one at best, like just so I know what an average loan officer looks like. This market is tough, like picking out who is going to succeed. And this, like for real estate agents too, and Ginger's dealing with this. There are, to be blunt, the industry is over capacity by far, both agents and loan officers. So then you're kind of rolling the dice. You could have somebody that was incredibly successful 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, that are going to do 0 loans going into this fall market, right? And so the one way to justify expense, number one, you have to realize that you're never going to bat 1,000, right? So you are going to make bad decisions. The trick, most companies fail at this, is they make a bad decision on a hire, and it drags on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. And they don't, and there's always like, well, they've got 45 prequals in their pipe. And I'm like, well, prequals don't kind of pay the bills. Like, what's actually happening, right? So you have to invest in talent that you think is going to succeed, and then you need to manage to it. And that means, again, checking in, seeing how they're doing. If you are hiring somebody, and to Tyler's point, leaving them on an island and not provide them any support, guess what's going to happen? They're going to fail, right? And so you need to be selective in your hiring. You need to take some chances, and then you need to manage the heck out of it. And when you make a mistake, fix it quickly, because almost 100% of the time, the problem doesn't get any better. So that's my view on it. You have to take some shots here. A producer, like, you know, there are producers today in this market closing $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 million a month. They're out there. They're likely not ready to move today because they're being very successful where they are. And that's when patience takes into account. And the other thing that I've learned, Sarah, you and I have dealt with this, when somebody's running to me and saying, hire me today, there's probably a problem, right? So, you know, a good recruiting exercise takes time. And I would say be patient and manage to the number. So
I think my thoughts on that question is, like, you don't have any other choice but you've got to sacrifice something now. You're always gonna have to sacrifice something now to get something in the future. So you've got to look at the cost today as investments in the future. And that doesn't necessarily have to be recruiting or sign-on bonuses, but it could be investment in technology, investment in processes and systems, you know, investment in your current people, more staff, potentially even being overstaffed to drive better results. So you really don't have a choice, because in this industry, or any industry, in business in general, if you're not investing today in the future and you're just trying to protect your current profitability, you're not going to innovate, and you're going to get swallowed by the competition 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So I feel like you have to constantly be innovating and investing in you know, what you're going towards in the future. You've got to be growing. But I'm EVP of growth, so of course I'm going to say you guys got to be growing, because that's my job security.
Well, maybe an unpopular comment, but when did growing always mean adding more people? Right. Growing is always about people. You know, for our size company right now, it doesn't mean we don't have opportunities that come across, you know, my desk or my CEO's desk that we take a look at. But I am hyper focused right now, on preparing us for scale, like building scale, so that when the market does shift, that I don't have to go out and hire bukus of people. I don't have to change all my processes and flood everybody with lots of volume and everybody panic, right? Everybody was there for COVID, right? We all know what that felt like. And that day, I don't know if it'll ever happen again, but the market will rebound. It always has. It always will. It's like watching the weatherman tell me every morning that we're on day 48 of triple digit numbers. And everybody acts like, oh my God, this is the first time we've ever seen it. No, it's not. This goes way, everybody's had triple digit years. So we'll rebound. But, and again, I don't know the size of the company that the person asked the question from, but I think each company is different and depending on their size and their priorities. And I would say for us right now, we are hyper focused on preparing ourselves for when we're ready for that growth. And we're ready to pull those triggers. And our format's a little bit different than I think your traditional retail format, but again, we're building for scale.
Sarah, can I just add one top, because you hit the nail on the head that I forgot to mention. The number one inhibitor to growth is bad retention. So you already have a bunch of birds in hand. And there are a lot of companies that get distracted. They're like, well, I'm going to go hire this, I'm going to hire that. They forget about the people that are actually already working there, paying the bills. There are ways to get your existing loan officers to do more loans. That's a growth strategy. So that's number one. Unless you have that right, don't go recruit anybody else. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got that right, then you can go out and recruit, take some shots. So
I think this segues well into, and Sarah, you kind of just touched on it, which is technology. That's and we have about 14 minutes left. And so this question might take us to the end, depending on where everyone goes with their answers. But technology, I mean, looking from the HousingWire perspective, has been something we've talked about throughout the years. I've been using, end-to-end digital mortgage for a while now. And so something I've tried to craft when building HousingWire Annual is, what does the technology conversation look like today? I know one conversation, I think it was there in your planning call, was, are we chasing shining objects versus what do you actually need to then also, maybe executives deploy the technology, but are people using the technology? How do you ensure that the NLO is using it in their day-to-day and understand it, and the training, and then making hard decisions on maybe you've signed contracts that don't work anymore. So technology is something that we have had great partnerships over the year, but it changes each year. So looking at it today, Sarah, I'll direct this to you first, knowing that we've talked about it. How do you strategically look at your tech stack, and how do you encourage the use of technology? What does that conversation look like? I know there's kind of a lot of parts to this, but I'll start there, and Sarah, you kick it off, and everyone else chime in.
Yeah. And Brena, I think you answered part of the question, so thank you. But, look, and again, my strategy with my company is going to be a lot different than what some of you might be doing in your own companies. But when I looked at some of the contracts that we had signed as a company, which all probably started off as a shiny object, right? Hey, look at me, come sign up. I promise you everything in the world, and you're gonna lower your costs by 50% and so forth and so forth. We've already heard all of those, and it's no disrespect to any of the vendors, but as lenders, what we're terrible at doing is balancing and managing, again, back to those OKRs, and making sure that you have something measurable to look at when you implement technology. Is it really making a difference, right? Is it really making a difference? And if it's not making a difference, how are you holding that vendor or whatever that piece of technology is? Even if it's proprietary, how are you holding yourself if it's proprietary? How are you holding yourself accountable to making sure that you're getting what you're paying for? Okay, a lot of times we go into these contracts, they get implemented, they kind of get swept under the rug, and then we get into times like right now where you're looking at your vendor spend and you're going, well, what the hell am I getting for that? Like, why is my cost to originate still X dollars? And this is supposed to be saving me, and I was at that X dollars 2 years ago. And so really diving into the numbers and looking at, are you getting what you're paying for, right? And each technology project should start with that minimum and ROI. What am I going to get? What am I going to get in return for this investment? And how quickly am I going to get my money back, right? When am I going to break even on the project and start seeing a difference, right? I will tell you specifically for Panorama, some of the other things that we have done, have analyzed what does technology, which might be highly unpopular again, what is technology offering me? versus what I might get for something that I can pay somebody. Well, just to give you guys a little background, we captive in Mexico. So I'm always measuring, okay, if this is what my ROI is on the technology, but I can still get it for less done through my captive. What am I doing? Right. So it might be a conversation with that technology to say, hey, look, I can get this done for this price. Can I work with you? Things like that. So just being open to having that very direct dialogue with the people that you're signing up with. There are some really good technologies out there, and we use them today in Panorama, but I would also say in times like right now, you should be looking at your vendor list. You should be making sure that you are getting what you're paying for. And if you're not, then you need to ask why. And you need to have those direct conversations with your vendors.
I agree with Sarah. I think that one of the challenges of an upmarket is that it can be easy to, start to invest in some of those shiny objects and tools. And at the end of the day, really understanding what is it that your end user needs. And, from my experience, thinking about the end customer, whether that is which in some cases for us, it's our agents and brokers as well as the consumer. What do they actually need to do, and how's the technology supporting that? And that can be, there can be a disconnect between that. Nobody is really looking at us for what is that technology from the technology perspective. It's what do you actually get out of it? We are at Better Homes and Gardens, and with our parent company Anywhere, investing pretty heavily in technology still, because that's going to be really important for us as we continue to grow and scale in the coming years. But with that comes, an analysis and look at what is that complete stack, and how do we make sure that we're investing in the right areas to be able to help drive what we're trying to achieve. And I think that's, comes down to the prioritization and focus, because we obviously are operating under smaller margins, slimmer budgets. And so you have to make trade-offs and where you focus your attention.
I mean, Ginger, you talked earlier about those strategies. Remember those strategies we talked about, where you have those objectives you need to meet to actually meet the high level strategic goal. These become tactics, right? Technology become the tactics that you're using to meet those objectives and those strategic goals. So, if something is not working and you're using that model that Ginger was talking about earlier on in the call, you can find yourself in some big trouble. Otherwise, if you're incorporating those and you're putting those quantitative metrics behind it, and you hold still and you inspect what you expect, I mean, you can really move mountains with some of the stuff that's out there nowadays. So, but it's all about making sure that you're getting what you're paying for at the end of the day.
I love the way you phrase that, Sarah, like the technology is a tactic and it's going to drive your strategy or your plan. Like technology itself is not going to solve a problem. And I think we all understand that. It's like you have to have, it's a tool to help supplement the process or improve a process. And sometimes you just have too many where it's just too much noise. So sometimes just picking your top 2 or 3 and driving the focus on those, getting the adoption from the users on those. I know we try to, encourage the use of technology, like just by sharing wins around it, like creating FOMO and creating hype. So users actually want to use it. If somebody's talking positively about how great this thing they did was, or this tool or this feature helped them do something and it saved them time, then other eyeballs and other people see that. And a lot of times just that group influence of people seeing someone else being successful with it or using it will help everyone else actually get on board with it, versus just saying, hey, here's this new technology, go use it, and here's your login info. So we try to just create an environment where people want to use the technology, and at the same time, it's got to be aligning with those strategies, as you mentioned, Sarah.
I want to, before we kind of wrap, I want to end with this question on the customer and customer satisfaction. Ginger, this is something that we've talked about. I know something you're passionate about. Everything we kind of discussed, or an earlier question we said, the why behind what we do. Something great we could do is put into people new homes, existing homes, the dream of home ownership. And that person at the end of that is the consumer and the customer and the borrower, or in some cases, I'm sure it's like an LO and an agent as well. So, Ginger, and for anyone as we wrap up, what do you think drives customer satisfaction in today's market, and what creates a happy borrower today?
I would say that the answer to this is really true in any market, and it's really two kind of key things. One is ease, and the other is communication. And we often think about ease as technology, which it certainly can be. Obviously, there's a simplification of process that needs to be done, and I'm excited to see how companies are investing to be able to achieve that. But often I also see people, kind of promoting their tech, and like we talked about, the customers don't care. They want the process to be simple and straightforward. And sometimes that might just be the ability to be able to reach somebody to answer their questions. So I would say one is making it as easy as possible. The other is heavily focused on communication. And when we think about the transaction, be it on the mortgage side or on the real estate side, it's so emotional for most people as they're going through it. And oftentimes what I've seen, I've been fortunate. I've had the opportunity to work with tens of thousands of loan officers, hundreds of thousands of real estate agents through my career. And the key that I see where people really thrive is those that are able to really be able to communicate with their customers effectively. And where technology can enable that, that's great. But I think sometimes that's forgotten. I actually went through my own mortgage transaction in November of 20. And at the time I was working for a top 3 mortgage lender. And you would have expected that the process would have been maybe easy for me, but it never is when you're on that side. And one of my big observations, and I really dove in with the loan officer that I was working with to understand, kind of where our gaps were. And he continually said, well, I didn't have anything to tell you. And I think that becomes kind of the norm that that when we don't have something to say, we don't want to communicate. And whether we're communicating with customers, whether we're communicating with our employees, that consistent communication throughout a highly, highly emotionally charged process is really, really key. And so where we can make it easy, where we can provide that level of communication is all really customers want at the end of the day. And all of the other processes and the technology needs to be able to go behind that to support that.
Ginger, you hit it nail on the head. Like for customer satisfaction, 100% of customer complaints, I would argue, come from setting poor expectations upfront, right? And so many loan officers fail at this. They take a deal, they haven't got a deal in a while, so they're excited about the deal, and they go, "No problem, this is going to be easy, sir. We'll have this thing in and out in 7 days." Not one of the loans we're doing today is easy. You could have an 800 FICO, 40% down, something sideways is going to happen. So it's setting those expectations up front, and they could be like. And the analogy I used to use was, hey, we're going to go on a cross-country airplane flight. Now we're going to be getting on the plane, and it's going to be like uncomfortable and sweaty and hot. And then we're going to take off, and it's going to be bumpy. And then there's going to be a period of time where we're floating up, and might be a little turbulence, and then we're going to land the plane. It's going to get real exciting then. And then more importantly, the other thing they fail is you hit the nail on the head. I didn't have anything to tell you. We tell our loan officers, you give the news. You give good news, bad news. You give, I don't have any news, but you give the news all the time. Hey, check it in. Got no news today. Perfect. Thanks. Everything is fine. And having hard discussions up front, you can ask the customer for anything, absolutely anything up front. What you can't do is 2 days before closing, say, I need your W-2. Then that's a problem, right? At the start of the transaction, like my W-2's up in the attic. Okay, I'll wait for you to go get it, right? I mean, that's okay. Setting expectations up front, and they could be really hard. Your loan's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. We're going to be lucky if we get this thing, but then you land the plane, they're going to be happy, right? And that's what drives it. Ginger, you hit it. Nobody cares about your technology. They want keys to a house. Now they want it to be easy and like smooth. And they don't want to be like sending you a fax, like, because I didn't even know fax machines exist anymore. But they want it to be easy, transparent, and you'll have happy customers every time.
Yeah, Jay, I had an hour-long conversation this morning about setting expectations. That was literally the topic of the whole call. So I think that's a huge piece right now. I know we're at time, so I won't ramble on that.
I was just going to say, every borrower's definition of easy is different. For me, easy is clicking 5 buttons and being done. For my mother, it's I need to talk to somebody every other day to feel comfortable. And so I think you have to just remember, to Jay's point, setting those expectations. First, understanding who your borrower is and how they even want to be communicated to, 1. And 2, giving those expectations of how you're going to do that going forward.
That's a great added point, Sarah. Something I say a lot and focus in on are subjective adjectives. So that was fast. That was easy. We all have different definitions of that. So you need to go a level deeper to actually define what easy is to you. So something that I think was great about, Tyler, Jay, Sarah, Ginger on this call is we all centered back to communication and the power of it. This webinar, we only had 1 hour to dive into so much, but at HousingWire Annual, each of you are going to go a level deeper into the stories of what that communication looks like in action, even more tangible tips on what to talk about. So I think we covered a lot here, but a big point of this call was even just a preview and a glimpse into the more that we're able to discuss in person, and even take off stage and talk through in person. That might be what I'm most excited about HousingWire Annual, is being able to have these conversations not virtually at our desk and have them in person, go deeper where we need to and ask our discussions and questions in person. So with that, I just want to say, Tyler, Jay, Sarah, Ginger, first, thank you so much each for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And for anyone listening, like I said, we'll be in Austin, Texas from October 10th through 12th. We have a fun little poll that we'll launch real fast to see if you guys are able to join us in Austin. If not, you'll be missed, and we'll have definitely another one of these. Join us September 6th at 1 Central Time, where we'll have 3 more leaders joining us to talk about lessons from the top. So we want to keep giving this information and previews to you guys as we head into 2024. So thank you everyone for your time today. And of course, thank you our 4 panelists for your time as well.